request Dr. P. Ramanujam and Professor V.V.S. Sharma to come to the dais, please. Good afternoon. Dr. P. Ramanujam, Professor Sharma, fellow alumnus, guests, bright young students, and invitees, and ladies. Otherwise, you will find fault with me, right? It is the 29th lecture of our popular science series, and we have been fairly successful in organizing lecture by the eminent person of the different field, both in the fundamental science, technology, social science, glimpses in Ayurveda and yoga, and cultural science also. And so that variety of knowledge and dissemination of information could be provided, and interest in the taste of different persons also could be met. You may understand, Alumni Association organized this program not for the benefit of the alumni alone. Primarily, it is for the students also, and for the outsiders who are genuinely interested in hearing good talk. We don't publicize it in a very great way, but we do put in a small, in today's engagement column in the paper. And it is very heartening to see day by day many of the young students also attend. Why I said this, though many of the senior citizens like me, we would enjoy the lecture and get excited and all those things, the contribution further from us could be limited, and our orientation of the thinking may not be very great beneficial to society. On the contrary, it could greatly benefit the youngsters. So I thank the student council chairman and other student fraternity to bring more students. I would request you to encourage others also to join for a variety of lectures, whichever the taste is yours. Today we have been fortunate to have a lecture totally different from normally what we had. Why I say totally different is, our Parthasarathi, whom we call Partha, he proposed the name of Dr. Ramanujam. He said he will give a talk on the science, philosophy and knowledge. But ultimately when the topic came, he talked about epistemological aspects of science. A couple of days back I asked Partha, do you know the meaning of epistemology? And simply he lifted the hands. I also did not know. I said, open the dictionary. Then I found it is science, knowledge, and philosophy. That is why the subsequent email when our office sent maybe after the 10th or 12th, everywhere within the bracket we put it. I know I am ignorant. Many of you may not be ignorant, but still for the benefit of some more ignorant people like me to get benefited, I put the full title there. And that is how this lecture. One more thing I wanted to tell you. We have one of the regular attendees is our senior alumnus, Mr. Ramanujachar. He is sitting here. Will you kindly stand up, please? He phoned up a couple of days back to tell me, Mr. Satyan, for once, even though I am a regular attendee, for once you have arranged a program which is very close to my heart. And I said, so nice of you at least. So I am assured of 3 people here. Then he said further, I would like to sponsor the event. I said, the most welcome. And he said, what is it going to cost? I said, forget about the cost, what it's going to be. It's a gesture that you exhibit. It's the inspiration for all of us. And you know, Mrs. Ramanujam and my sisters are friends. My sister told me, oh, Ramanujam, when given an opportunity for the bus and auto, he'll go by bus, not by auto. And he would like to spend so much of money towards this. That shows how much interest he has shown and how much this thing is that. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much for sponsoring the event. Okay, now it is our normal practice for me to introduce the moderator. And the moderator will introduce the speaker. Speaker also. I see. Today, so we have to find somebody specifically to moderate the program who have got some knowledge about the subject. So it took, but Partha could solve our problem very easily, identifying a like-minded person in Professor V.V.S. Sarma. Incidentally, he is also alumnus of the Institute of Science. Professor V.V. He gave a biodata, such a brief one. Professor V.V.S. Sarma, Honorary Professor, Department of Computer Science and Automation, Institute of Science, Bangalore. He obtained his BE, ME and PhD degree in Electrical Engineering from Institute of Science and was in the Institute faculty since 1967. He is superannuated as a professor in the Department of Computer Science and Automation in 2006 and has been an honorary professor and INAE distinguished professor till 2012. His research interests very varied and can broadly be described by terms of system science and engineering. His present interests are Indian society, sociology, religion, culture, classic literature and logic. He writes on these topics in English and Telugu. He is a fellow of Indian National Science Academy, Indian Academy of Science and Indian National Academy of Engineering. See, a person who has devoted all his life to science and technology with absolute logic realized, yes, there is another phase of the life which is attended. Now I would request Pasaradi to present the flower to Dr. Ramanujam. And I request Dr. Anusuya Devi to present the flower to Dr. Professor Sharma. I see. Professor Sharma.
I am very happy to introduce Dr. Ramanujan here in this meeting. He is a Vedic scholar, Vidyavaradhi, and he also says kindly that I am his teacher in the Computer Science Department of Indian Institute of Science. But in the domain of Vedas and Indian literature, I am not even fit to be his student, because what I have is only interest rather than depth in it. My interest in actually Sanskrit literature started in computer science. We were talking of all sorts of logic, Boolean logic, fuzzy logic, predicate calculus, programming in logic, Rolard, and such others. Once in the library I was going through a book, History of Law. I was surprised to find there was a full chapter dedicated to Indian law. We have never heard of it. And then one day we have a Sanskrit Sangha here. Professor D.K. Subramaniam was supposed to give a talk on Indian law. And he had some other engagement. Somebody told me, you had a book on Indian logic, why don't you speak on the subject? So, though I kept the book on my table for a long time, I took a week to read that. And I was fascinated by that. And Professor I.G. Sharma, who was the then chairman of automation, and Professor Vishwanathan, who were on the editorial board of Sadhana, suggested, why don't you write it to Sadhana, to Indian Academy of Sciences, what you have taught as introduction to Indian law. Because when we talk of logic, we mention Greek philosopher Aristotle, and then we jump to 19th and 20th century and Bertrand Russell and Aristotle. But on the other hand, from Gautama to Raghunath Shiromani, and even today the great Vedic scholars like Ramanujachar, this is his own student, Srinivas Ramanujan was our student, a continuing tradition of logic. And I was also doing some research. This Boole's wife is Everest. And Everest is the Surveyor General of India who measured the outer of Mount Everest. And she wrote an article, how much Western science is indebted to Indian science. Evidently Colebrook knew Indian logic. He talked of Panchavaya Nyayavasya, and different types of logic Boole has got from that book only. From his wife, the essay of his wife, and we don't read anything about that in our textbooks, unfortunately. Because there is much more than Indian logic, there is much more than Aristotelian logic, and more than Bertrand Russellian logic. So in that context, I met Dr. Ramanujan, and so learnt a lot through him. Let me formally introduce him to you. Dr. Ramanujan has qualifications both in academics and traditional studies. He obtained his D.Litt honoris causa from Rashtriya Sanskrit Vidyapith, New Delhi, and he had an MSc Engineering in Computer Science Department of Bangalore, IISc Bangalore in 1999. Prior to that, he studied in BMS College, Electrical Engineering B. He studied in Gurukula system, Taittiriya Krishna Yajurveda, Vyakarana, Visishtadvaita Vedanta, and Nalariya Divya Prabandham of Alvars in Tamil. He held numerous professional positions such as Director, Program Coordinator, Language Computing at CDAC, Bangalore. He held senior positions in MHRD, Government of India, for developing innovative schemes and programs that should be implemented in the 12th Ayush 5-year plan of Government of India. He wrote several books. He was teaching and discoursing on Vedic learning. He has edited with a detailed introduction in Sanskrit Lakshmi Sahasram of Mahakavi Venkatadhari. He has written a series of articles in Kannada under running serial Trayimaya on Vedic Samskaras in Ramanujachar Kannada Quarterly in the 80s. He has published Purnakumbha on the occasion of the birth centenary celebrations of Vedic scholar Sri Ganapati Vidwan Paramkusacharya in January 2005 published Saptalakshmi Parishtara, a text relating to suitable details regarding Vedic recitation of Krishna Yajurveda with a detailed commentary. Computer analysis, indices, etc. in Devanagari script in Vedic accent markers for the first time in February 2006 was completed by him. He has several awards: Vedavaridi, Veda Vijnana Shiromani, Vaidika Bhushanam, Asthana Vidwan of Ahobilamat, and conferred the honorary degree Vachaspati by Lal Bahadur Sanskrit Rashtriya Sanskriti Vidyarthi. He has several publications on both computer related and Vedic literature. He has guided 2 PhD candidates in computer analysis of Sanskrit and of 2 Sanskrit classes, Ishpalavadham by Magam and Vakyapadiya by Bhartraya, which is a classic text on Vyakara. Yes. Good afternoon to all my teachers, well-wishers and students of Indian sciences. I just gave this topic specifically to at least see one new word enters to the vocabulary of people with good knowledge. In fact, there is an Indian word which is even rarer even among Sanskrit scholars. There is a Shastra called Mimamsa. Mimamsa is generally translated as epistemology by Westerners. Mimamsa is also not known, epistemology also is not known, so it hardly matters which language we use. Either way we are at the same level. So I just tried to say, knowledge and philosophy, if these 2 words are added, science of knowledge is what generally the dictionary definition is. So I just tried to give the dictionary part also. If someone wants to know from the Wikipedia, it is available. How is epistemology derived? It comes from some Greek word which says knowledge or understanding is the root of that. And the study of that or the branch of philosophy concerned with the nature of knowledge. So there are 2 aspects in this. Knowledge per se, what is it? Plus, how does somebody study, classify, understand, utilize, etc. Now, I just want to give a little preamble why this was given as a topic. There is one very old analogy in the Sankhya Karika. Sankhyas were supposed to be the earliest Darshanika. They say, if there is a blind person and a lame person, these 2 can do both their jobs by collaborating perfectly well. Pangvandhava dubhayo sambandhaha, it is mentioned in the Sankhya Karika. So there is another equivalent like science and religion. Science is blind and without religion, etc. Religion becomes lame without science. So the earlier or the original way of combining 2 aspects in life which are occurring apparently differently, but then if they are put together, that synergy is very helpful. Science definitely needs this part, basically known and unknown. There are 2 things. The physical things are visible, seen, but there is a lot more that is unseen. Similarly, living and non-living, for example, non-living things are abundantly available, they are visible, they are studied, but the living ones are more complex. So, but these are specifically taken, this is more or less a translation from Taittiriya Upanishad they have just done. Exactly in these categories, there is a mention there. When creation was made, it was made into living and non-living things, known, not known, defined, undefined, various kinds of description. And of course, today we can use with some good tools in real life situations to find solutions.
One of the purposes of knowledge is to find solution to misery, to emancipate a person from difficulties, from pain. So, if anyone needs to be at peace, at tranquility, it is necessary that knowledge at some point is useful, but knowledge of practical variety is what is needed. But in that case, do we need epistemology for theoretical purposes is the next question. Because there is a lot of inadequacy today we see in the conventional way of working, Western approach or even Indian approaches, if we do not look at theoretical background. Today one important problem is when we have a global world, the difficulty is about interpersonal relationships, interactions among different nationalities of people. Beyond technical aspects, there are also cultural aspects, linguistic aspects, national boundaries, various things. Ultimately, they all come down to the value systems or at some point ethics or morals. These become inevitable. Of course, there is a lot of disparity, in which case, how does somebody say equity is right, inequality is wrong? Even that itself requires a full-blown analysis. Epistemology at least tries to say, but there are a number of antagonists also saying good is not good and bad is not bad. Even this is possible. This has also been taken. In fact, we have in our Indian systems of epistemology very, very open discussions. We are just wanting to see how far we can use that in today's life. Priorities, for example. Where do you give priority? Which do you take as very important? Again, based on the weightages given to different things, and weightages vary between persons. Is there an absolute way of deciding weightages or priorities? Then again, epistemology is one guide in that line. Of course, I just mentioned, today we hear this knowledge society. People have been very often saying, we are now reaching towards knowledge society, because data sometime back it was information, then now it is knowledge. But really, is that knowledge what is being touted as future really the knowledge as one should understand theoretically? So, the inevitable question is, what is knowledge? We come back to the starting point. Particularly for this talk, there was one background. 5-6 months back, there was a Karnataka Knowledge Commission in this state. I was once invited there for one of the mission group meetings. I was curious. They had translated this into Karnataka Jnana Ayoga in Kannada. So I asked that chairman there, what do you mean by Jnana here? Is Jnana equivalent to knowledge? Use them synonymously. For having asked the question, I was told, you better define. You happen to be more knowledgeable than us for having asked the question. So we had a series of meetings, some workshops, and of course some amount of work done on this. Of course, there is also a report. Towards the end of it, I just have the report. This is produced by, of course, one excellent chairman of that committee, Mr. K.R. Srinivasmurthy. He was earlier director of IIM Bangalore. He was the chairman of this committee. He articulated it well. Just have some of these points to tell the government. In the education sector, we need to also put some emphasis on the theoretical background. But actually what happened there was, we tried to look at different homegrown methods in agriculture, in water conservation, in health, various kinds of areas. We could list out, document quite a few successful, non-conventional ways of practices actually. We call them as community knowledge and practices. Then someone raised an issue, how to validate them. Suppose Westerners say something and then we have our own homegrown thing. These are somehow looked down upon by people, psychologically, whichever way. Then is there a yardstick to evaluate, validate? Are there some parameters available? One of the issues we looked at in that committee meetings was to look at a theoretical basis. It even went to the extent of certain festivals. But agriculture is related with certain festivals also in different regions of the country. Even they have some very good basis. But they all at some point go up to Vedas. That is one of the things we thought is worthwhile at least telling people. It is not that they are fools. They may not know the originals or the authentic sources. They are not off track. This much at least can be assured to people. Whether you follow or not is no problem. Don't stop me following. I have a conviction it is our ancestral way and it should be right. If this is the kind of the approach, then of course we should try to find, is there a basis? So there is a second word that I want to introduce here, a word called ontology. Whenever knowledge is talked about, how do we define knowledge? One of the important factors, any definition of knowledge, there have been number of definitions proposed by various systems of schools of philosophy. All of them have one common feature, that it deals with classifying entities, realities into various ways, various parameters. The classification per se itself is called ontology, wherein you have some hierarchy of various concepts. Certain things are at the top level, some are derived out of them. But this again, from the Sankhyas we have Prakriti, Vikriti and Vikriti, this kind of categorization they had made. It's like a tree, if you have, there is a node and from there you can have a number of branches and each one itself can be the source of some more divisions, etc. At some point we should be putting all the knowledge into a systematic hierarchical way. And in that sense, it is possible to understand. A very simple example is from the Swami grammar. In the olden days, people used to teach Sanskrit, Akarantaha, Pullingaha, Ramashabdaha, like that. It only says ontologically two things. A masculine noun ending in the letter A has certain ways of declension, certain suffixes it takes. Suppose it becomes Ikaranta, there is some other change, it becomes Ukaranta, some other change. So the ending character of the base is one of the factors, one of the parameters that affect the way it is declined. The gender is the other. So you have two parameters that decide the noun forms in the language. Similarly now, instead of knowing all words and memorizing all their forms, if only one knows by paradigms, there are certain paradigms alone which are valid. And for each one of them, if there is some clear-cut knowledge, you know the whole language. This again is an example of ontology. It's also there in medicine, it is there in astronomy, it is there in mathematics. Any different field, you start with your universe, that particular domain has its universe. All the things, all the objects of study in that domain are to be put into certain categories with their relationships. A well-related hierarchy of concepts or categories is an ontology. So we have an ontology for all things in the universe in the Shastras. Epistemology also deals with, for different domains. Epistemology is the study of knowledge. Knowledge itself has got certain kind of organization and structure. A structured study. I have just given one example here. Again, a wiki definition of ontology I have put in here. Philosophical study of the nature of being, existence or reality, etc., as well as the basic categories of being. It is important that entities which are can be said to be existing, can be proven to be existing, have a relationship within a hierarchy. If this kind of clear-cut knowledge exists, it is something like sorting bin in a post office. When you get so many letters into a post office, the postal staff just try to arrange it based on your pin code or the region to which something should go. Similarly, in the mind, when you see anything new, any question is put to a person, what does this belong to? Which area does it belong to? Where are we to find answer for this? And what to relate to what, to see that your issues are solved. Similarly, the issue today, if we have a new disease, for example, where do you find a medicine for that? What is this due to? There are fundamentally some three concepts, Kapha, Vata, Pitta, and each one of them can have an abnormality for which there is some kind of a solution. So one should be able to go to the root. I have just taken some examples. In fact, Vedas at some level are pure knowledge alone, epistemology or something. We just don't worry about the ritualistic part or the religious part, let us say, just the knowledge content part of it. Just put one example. Bipeds and quadrupeds. Animals with 2 feet and 4 feet. This is one of the words generally used. Dvipad and Chatushpad Pashus. Human beings are not respected so highly. They are treated as animals with 2 feet. This is the description given in the Vedas. And there are animals with 4 feet. If animals are to be classified, this is one way of classifying. You can have bipeds and quadrupeds. There is another way. Do you have single row of teeth or 2 rows of teeth? This is another way. Anyatodan, ubhayatodat, ubhayadat is one word. Anyatodan is another word. This is one way of classifying. There is also a classification which says you can have single hoof or 2 hoofs. But even for food habits, what to eat, what not to eat, there are very big granthas on this called Ahara Niyama. One simple rule that says there, milk, there are a number of conditions which milk can be taken, how, when, all that. That milk of single hoofed animals is forbidden. Very simple. Ekashafa, Dvishafa, this is the word used. Annitodan, Uvayadan, Dvipad, Chatushpad, these are the ways, and they share so much of important qualities, it is enough to categorize them like this. There is of course Gramya and Aranya is another category of Pashus. Domestic animals used in the villages, and those which are in the forest are in the, I would call them mild and wild, let us say, something that is in the grama or in the domesticated state. But then again, we have certain categories. There are only 7 kinds of domestic animals, 7 kinds of Aranya animals. Similarly, all the plants, the grains, etc., they are also divided into Gramya, Aranya, 7 in the Gramya, 7 in the Aranya. These are all from the Vedas, I am saying. Apart from rituals, there is so much of knowledge, the science of classification, attaching characteristics which are important or prominent. This is something that we, of course, there are also land-based, water-based, amphibious, these kind of descriptions. These are some of ways. And Medhya, Amedhya is another word that is used, that which can be used in sacrifices, those which are holy and those which are not useful for holy purposes. This is another way of division. So these are all found even in the scriptures. Unfortunately today very rarely people are able to devote time to the content. It is more at the form. One recites, commits to memory, uses it by rote, but rarely one goes into what does it signify. So there could be, in fact there is one very interesting mention in Taittiriya Samhita. Among all animals, 3 animals have one property of eating with the hand. That is human beings, elephant and monkey. You said there, Purusho Hasti Markataha, this is mentioned in, what is common among apparently diverse things. So knowledge is necessary. In fact, when you find words so diverse, how do you unify them? How do you see oneness in them? It is said that if you can see everything equally or similarly, then you have reached knowledge. How to see it? What is the mantra for what is the rule, success formula is the epistemological study of it. So I am just trying to give, of course, one paper during that discussion in that committee. The chairman of the committee, Mr. Murthy, gave me an article written by one John P. Van Gick. He is from California State University. A research paper that they had written comparing the epistemologies of scientific disciplines in 2 distinct domains, modern physics versus social sciences. This is one research paper. It is of course now published as a book from the Wiley and Sons. 2 articles he wrote, one for the modern physics and the other for the social sciences. He just has given the justification saying, I have considered one from the hard sciences and one from the soft science, or the exact sciences and the inexact sciences kind of. And of course he has said mechanistic analytical approach is found in the hard sciences or the exact sciences. Whereas behavioral and biological approach is taken in the case of social sciences. And there also of course he makes a further distinction. Social sciences, there are traditional social sciences like psychology, anthropology, sociology, etc. I am not talking of them. There is something like a new social science related to science of design. let's say, or constructivist theories. Okay. So he has just tried to give some parameters. I am just wanting to draw the attention only because today Westerners, if they are able to go back to epistemology, they are coming into a certain path. In fact, we have much more elaborate things already available with us. Our attention never goes there unless, okay, we are reminded at least by someone outside. Nevertheless, if we can still do our own work, what we have just tried to give characteristics and properties of domain, this is to be seen, sources of knowledge. And these are all, each one is having enough material for a full lecture, but I am just saying the kinds of interest or the investigation that is done in these areas, concept of reality, knowability, description, this is difficult to describe knowledge. If someone were to say, we only believe in scientific approach, I have asked a person, in your modern physics or even nuclear physics textbook, take all your syllabus, how much percentage of it has been actually seen or observed in a lab and the result is reproducible? You said it is only 5%. 5% of any syllabus today of modern physics. Einstein said something, 1 or 2 experiments have been replicated by people, accepted. After that, his credibility carries him through for the rest of it. No one ever further tries to check out the rest of it. This is also true with tradition, but people try to find fault. If you can believe Vishwamitra, Vasishtha kind of seer, oh, only one mantra, Gayatri mantra is seen by Vishwamitra. So how can I believe him in the other cases? Or why can't this be in the counter-example kind of? That is as much true even in modern sciences. Unfortunately, these questions are not raised, but today slowly the world is coming to a situation we are short of answers for problems. Then any damn thing that can take you near a solution is fine, even if it is tradition. So today it is coming to a stage where we are coming from the other end. If at all it can solve the problem, Baba, let me take a look at it. And then nothing is lost. You can try to see. So he has just given, based on physical sciences, he has just tried to classify. Modern physics kind of hard sciences are closed systems and they do not have behavioral characteristics. They are supposed to be exact meaning or measurable meaning. It doesn't depend on behavior of the person. It doesn't have organic behavior, and hence there is nothing that is purposeful in that. There is no goal to be sought. And of course, then mathematical theories work well. Their models are okay. Empirical inferences, results, etc. will be the method there. There is a lot of objectivity available, no issue. There is a logical relationship between premises and conclusions, but cause and effect is not talked about. If at all it is there, it is only statistically accepted and not materially. This is the kind of whereas the other side, I was just mentioning, the traditional social sciences, he says psychology, sociology, anthropology are traditional social sciences. The new sciences are sciences of complexity, constructivist theories, science of the artificial, science of design, etc. These are open systems. These are based on purpose and these are goal seeking. The moment this comes in, a living being steps in. The moment a living being is in the loop, there are so much of inexplicability. You will not be able to a priori say how will somebody behave. The very same person in different situations, how will he behave? Cannot be said. In fact, the extreme of this is what is precisely contained in Gayatri Mantra itself. Gayatri Mantra is explained by Vedanta Desika in his text called Shatadurshani. It just says, this mantra talks about, in plural, let that God guide or stimulate our knowledges or buddhis. Why does this plural get into this mantra? Even an individual says this, why do we say Bahuvachana? Our buddhis, there are two plurals in that for each person, even for an individual. He has just given Prati Purusham Anekaha. Even for the same person, the mind behaves in very many different forms. For the very same person, it takes different states. Prati Purusham Anekaha. It does not remain static the same way all the time. Not only that, Pratyavastham Vichitraha. When you are young, when you are a boy, when you are adult, when you are old, different avasthas of the person, different things become favorable, unfavorable, etc. At any given stage, they are continuously changing, and they keep changing with the stages of the person. So, because of this much of plurality in the thought process itself, that all of them be good towards a noble goal, this is what we pray, that mantra. This is what ultimately comes to the moment purpose is introduced, goal is introduced, a living being is introduced, then the complexity grows. And it cannot be mechanized, it cannot be analyzed mechanically. There cannot be one size fits all kind of a solution. You cannot have a lab with beakers or whatever kind of observable phenomena. This has to be speculation. This is the basic difference, whereas the exact sciences or the so-called modern physics kind of them are objectivity based. There has to be necessarily subjectivity here. Many a times, in fact there are of course great thinkers who have said, sweet is available in different varieties in nature. Somebody likes something and does not like something else. And you cannot say he does not like sweet, he does not like a particular sweet. And what can be the reason? Or can somebody, Tira Gudadina, is one of the examples given. You can't even describe the difference between them. Someone likes them, dislikes them. There's no way there could be a theory around. But it is as true and as effective in life as anything else, any other hard science can be. So it is important that we cannot ignore this way. Whether there is a logical relationship or not, whether it is possible to reason out, it is true and it is more effective than those which can be reasoned out. In this sense, we have just tried to come to a situation where I have just put one sentence there. Science has far long concerned itself with the physical world more than living being in the loop. This is one of the observations and naturally avoid value-based issues. But there is no solution. This is a fact I am just stating, but this does not take you anywhere. In fact, there is a cynical argument, science never solves a problem without creating 10 more. This is one very well-known statement. Then, where are we led to in the end? You may be excited at some point, no doubt, but then, where are we led in the end? So, if at all, I am just saying, if somebody wants to have a knowledge society, then are we meaning it? If you want to have a true knowledge society or knowledge economy, society of course, the economy is part of the society, yes. Nature also has to be taken into your equation. Human beings are also to be taken into the equation. It is not enough with only the physical world or the observable concrete world alone. And today we are missing these issues which are leading us into sort of conflict. And of course, even in computer science, they have artificial intelligence, natural language processing, they have a number of fields wherein these studies are going on. But the knowledge representation from the epistemological side is still not done to the extent that is required. With the rigor we need to do. And hence, of course, the language is another important vehicle of all this knowledge. Knowledge is always conveyed through words. Is one of the emphatic statements of Bhartrihari. Nasosti pratyayo loke ye shabdanagadrite. Yes, there is no knowledge, no cognition which is not described through words, whether it is spoken or not. Even in the mind, if you think of something, there is some pattern of words which is associated with it. What are you thinking about? This is the kind of emphatic statement. So when languages come into picture, English of course is not in that sense having all the features of richly describing the experiences of a living being. Indian languages do, but Indian languages do have certain challenging factors. They are phonetic. The very utterance, the emphasis, the accent itself can connote different meanings. And there is a good science behind which to be used when, for what emotion, what swaras, etc. That part again makes it important for us to study. And again, this basis is epistemological. Udatta and Udatta Sarta are actually epistemological categories. Today we are simply saying you mark a vertical line on the top, horizontal line at the bottom. This is not what it is. There is not so much of, if the same word with different accents are used, it may denote a substance, it may denote an attribute, it may denote something else. The category of the word meaning changes, not only the word meaning changes. These are issues. It is rich in cultural content, there is no doubt about it. In fact, the word like namaste, pranam, etc., they have so much of meaning. If you take the prakriti, pratyaya, the upasargas, the final word form, etc. to whom can this be used, etc. Each one contains a lot more of knowledge. Again, it is epistemologically proven, written out. Unfortunately, it is ignored. We don't want to only see, we need to study them back to get the ontology, to handle knowledge representation issues. It is possible to have physical level of manipulation, but it has a very short domain in which it can work, beyond which it just doesn't work. We cannot make a machine make decisions. Artificial intelligence is to be defined in such a sense that it helps you. It's a great help for you to avoid monotony, where say a human being takes an inordinately long time or effort. Machine can do this faster earlier. Beyond that, maybe it can remember things more. Today, if someone asks me in Mahabharata out of 1,000, 1,00,000 shlokas, how many times the word aham occurs, it's not easy to rattle out. A machine can easily do that if you have told all the 1,00,000 shlokas with their words. But yes, we have done this, we have shown. What does this mean to the machine? Aham occurs 8,706 times in Mahabharata. Means what to the machine, which gives you this answer. It should make some meaning to someone else who has spoken this, who has maximum used this. If you say Ahankara is wrong, why does Krishna use hundreds of times Aham, etc.? Someone has a question. And whose Ahankara is okay, whose Ahankara is not okay? Machine will not decide. Ultimately, the decision comes into a human. So long as human beings are avoided, science is fine. If human beings are brought in, science has to accept defeat. Then of course philosophy takes over, or maybe epistemology takes over. You can postpone, no doubt, but it is inevitable. That's what I am just saying. Knowledge is going to be the currency of future. It was the currency of the olden days. No one respected a wealthy person in the earlier days. But we have the Vairagya Panchakam from Vedanta Deshika saying, he was called to be the court Pandit of Vijayanagar Empire. He simply said, this means something to a person who values money, and I do not. So it means nothing to me. Your offer means nothing to me. Are you rich? I am not. Why are you declining? Don't mean being rich is being materially rich. This is what he simply said. Abhindhana dhananjaya prasapadam dhanam dandhanam. Dhanam is the word for money. Dandhanam is the word for useless or waste. Uses the word dhanam in one sloka 11 times, just to say it can be indhana, it can be dandhana, it can never. And my dhana is my paitamaha dhana, which is Lord Varadaraja and Kanchipuram, he said. It's not earned by me. I have not earned anything in my life. I don't have any paternal property. I have a grandpaternal property. It is said that Lord Brahma did Ashwamedha in Kanchipuram. Lord Varadaraja came out. So he is called Pitamaha. So this Paitamaham Dhanam I have, and that is what I am happy with and content with. Nothing else can substitute for this, is what he said. Ultimately, if knowledge is true, it solves problems, and once it solves problems, it naturally commands respect. Even today, there is a small percentage of people who do value knowledge more than. In fact, Institute is one such place. Why do people come to this place? Treated as a place of knowledge, more than every other material benefit. Maybe there could be a number of people who are materially or monetarily much better off in terms of dollars, but I don't think still they can command the kind of respect simply because of the elevation that it gives to a person, the transformation in the life that it brings out. Knowledge always is elevating. You just need to look at these. I was just wanting to mention that. Of course, how do we begin? We have just proposed. Actually, I am just wanting to talk on one small book that is written long back from Mysore. There was a scholar called Lakshmipuram Srinivasacharya. He was the professor of philosophy, was the HOD of Vishtadvaita, and of course he published many of the Veda Bhashyas, Dharma Sutras, Shauta Sutras, etc. He was an authority, and in his times many of the decisions for day-to-day actions of people used to be referred to a Dharma Parishad, and he used to give decisions. It is not that he only had theoretical knowledge. Many live problems people used to take to him, and then he used to give solutions, but give the basis for the solutions and make people to be at peace with themselves. So he has written a book called Mana Meya Rahasya Shloka Vartikam. That two words are to be known, Pramana and Prameya. He calls them as Mana and Meya, the instrument of knowledge and the object of knowledge. If these two things are known, about them there are a number of theories. He doesn't distinguish between Astikas or Nastikas. He doesn't distinguish between those who believe in Vedas or otherwise. Any thinker in the Indian history, whoever have good books written, treatises written, collected all of them, right from Charvaka, there are at least 15 different Siddhantas he has compiled. But he had a very good intellectual acumen to put them together in a very logical, systematic way. This is written in the form of slokas. There are more than 6,000 slokas in the text. He has tried to put together on a given topic. Let us say the other world exists or not. Punarjanma is there or not. Adrishta is there or not. Should we do some activity or not? Take any Adrishtavada, Karmavada, Paralokavada, Astikavada, Nastikavada, everything he has taken. And every one of them, what are all the views of earlier thinkers? Now, you want to agree with any of them is one way, disagree with all of them is fine. If you want to propose anything new, this is the framework in which you will do. He at least tried to put a proper framework of Pramana and Prameya. I have done a compilation. You can take any side, no issue. And you can also criticize any of them. But let it be more directed, systematic study. So, we are now trying to see, this book of course has now been data entered, we have put it into a program part, it is searchable, we have made it browsable and all. Next part is to actually model this into, for any given situation. We are just wanting to see grammar can be studied, logic can be studied, epistemology can be studied, philosophy can be studied, but you need the fundamentals of them. So, we have just said this book of course is quite good. I took some of the case studies in them. Actually, I am just putting one of the life as sacrifice is one of the things we just tried out. In Taittiriya Upanishad, in the last Anuvaka, there is one statement. A person can live as a moving sacrifice himself. Vidwan can be Yajna himself. Now, Yajna has got certain paraphernalia. A sacrifice requires fire and then so many other fuel, etc. There is a Nijamana, there is a Patni, there is a time, there are different things to be done. It lists out about 30 different limbs of a sacrifice. Against each one of them, in the very life of this person, a renounced person, let us say, a person with philosophical thought, can conduct his own life in such a way that it is equivalent to a good full-blown sacrifice using the Agnis itself. Then, very simple thing, you have Ajya or the ghee to be poured into the fire flame. Upanishad says the desires are the Ajya. You burn them out. It's just an allegorical way, figurative way of saying the place to be given to something in a live physical sacrifice can as well be used in the lifestyle of a person. If only you identify the values of different things, then how does somebody classify? So the classification comes from the Vedic text. It's not only for reproducing, remembering and reproducing, it is also more to contemplate. I have taken a few examples, I will just go through a few of them. In fact, about food itself, if you see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has said so much about Satvika Ahara, Rajasa Ahara, Tamasa Ahara, who likes what, why, and what does it lead you to. These are not trivial things. In fact, the same activity done by two different people of two different compositions can produce two different results. Even though science or the hard sciences may expect, irrespective of if X can do, Y also can do, it is not true as far as non-physical or the biological systems go, but the world is governed by these more than the predictable or the analyzable one. In fact, I have just taken a few cases maybe. Some of these details I will leave out. So I will leave the file here, maybe someone can. But just the sample statement. Uddhared Atmana Atmanam, Natmanam Avasadayet. This is one sloka. If you translate it to English, it will come. One should help himself and not allow diffidence or never lose hope, kind of. Atmaiva Kyatmano Bandhu, Atmaiva Ripuratmana. Now, what do you make out of this? Is it a statement? You have a question on this, some machine gives out an answer, kind of. Or it has some teaching for us, there is some message. Now, how does somebody, now what is the karta, karma, etc. here? See, there is a person, he has an enemy. Now, the same person is his own enemy. And if he is an enemy, he should be enemy for all times. That is also not true. He is also the friend for himself. So at different times the same person becomes an enemy and friend. In fact, at the same time for different things it can also happen. You are good in something, bad in something. No, this trait of yours I like, this I don't like of you. Both are there in the same person at the same time. Then how do we represent? This becomes, even if you put it logically, even if you say they are multivalued logic, how do these behave? They do not behave similarly. Each one has a different direction in which it works out. Another example, so this is used for teaching good behavior. These are called subhashitas, and one of the subhashitas I have translated. Take a drop of water, put in 3 different situations and see what happens to that. When it is in contact with red hot iron, it's not even heard anymore, it's just gone. If it is put on a lotus leaf, it looks like a pearl from a distance. And it falls into an oyster shell, it becomes pearl itself. Now, the same water drop, because of the samsarga, because of the sahavasa, it had adhama sahavasa, its name also was not even heard. It had madhyama sahavasa, it at least looked like from a distance, like a pearl. It has uttama sahavasa, it becomes mukta itself. Now, the message is okay, have satsavasa, satsanga kind of thing, choose your company properly, right kind of people, it helps you. Now, these are things that are necessary. How does somebody put these in? If I want to teach Panchatantra to somebody, the story can be told, it is very easy. One can animate, use all the multimedia, etc. The moral of the story does not come through those equipment. It has to go to a living being and it should transform him and it should be seen in his further actions. That is the level where I think today there is a lot of gap. And then there is a good amount of guidance available in our own scriptures. Unfortunately, we are not looking at them. If we are able to look at that, get transformed, even delta X kind of thing, that will help. So these are there is another statement. This is of course another interesting way of saying by Bhattacharya. When I was knowing very little, I was thinking I am know all, and I was so arrogant like an elephant. Yada kinchit nyoham gadeva madamdha samabhavam. I was so haughty, feeling I was omniscient. But later on I slowly started actually learning with learned people. Yada kinchit budhajana sakashad avagatam tada murkhosmiti dvaraiva madame vyapagataha. Now, how are we to represent these kinds of knowledge in us? And should we actually make a machine intelligent in this sense? Possible or not is one issue. It is for us to get influence, to be transformed. One can use, of course, the text cannot be read in the original, maybe is an issue. And that can be modeled, it can be put into some different useful, logical or visualizable form. That part, if this is done, ultimately the user has to be a living being for his own use. There is a good saying, there is a mirror. Mirror can show things. And someone says this is not true. I am a blind person, it does not show me anything. Then is it the mistake of the mirror? Yasya nasti swayam prajna shastram tasya karoti kim locanadhyam vihenasya darpana kim karishyati. So, what to expect from which the instrument cannot substitute for the one that gives the result. So, learning only hones and refines. It can only transform existing knowledge, but there is also the negative side. A knowing person only can cheat other person. Now, cheating necessarily requires knowledge. Crooks are necessarily intelligent, except that the direction is different. Now, how does somebody control? So it is said to be a dvidhara. It is double-edged sword. Can be used for self-defense, can be used for offense. Either way, given for all, but then it is also given with a word of caution. The caution is not exercised. You cannot guarantee just because knowledge is there, it will only lead to good results. It cannot be guaranteed. That's the reason again, Gayatri, etc. Why did this mantra come and all? Why does the greatest prayer in the Vedas say about your own control, your own stimulation for using everything for the good, irrespective of what the other side is? So, these are things, the cognition or the knowledge or the philosophy behind that, if that gets into science, then it becomes easier. I have many times wondered why people cannot say, I do not know very often, if they really do not know something. Many a times people try to make up to avoid saying I do not know, saying so many other things, and ultimately maybe they get exposed, don't get exposed, but the results do not really come out. In that sense, it has not been very purposeful kind. And in the Shastras, the word used is jijnasa. Every Shastra starts with the word jijnasa, that is the desire to know. And the prerequisite is ajnana itself. I have ajnana in the field, hence I have a desire to know. So if the ajnana jnana comes out, that itself is a good step to start out. So there is again 4 kinds of people classified based on what do they do with the knowledge. There is a category called noblemen. We call them as Satpurushas. Satpurushas are those who do good for others, even foregoing their own requirement. Of course, many of the ordinary people would take care of themselves and then help out others. The second category, we call them as ordinary people. So the third category, they are called as Manusha Rakshasaha, is the word used there. Demons in human form. They destroy others' good for selfish ends. And even this is understandable. Shastrakaras say there is a 4th category. We are not able to name them even. They spoil others' good for nobody's good. What do they achieve in the end? Teke najanimahe. This is what is said in the Shastra. We can't even name them. There is no good label to describe. Ke nignanti nirarthakam parahitam teke najanimahe. It is normally said the dog in the mangar policy. The dog sitting over the haystack, it stops the cow from eating it. It can't eat the grass by itself. It cannot benefit, and it doesn't allow for whom there is a benefit required. Because I don't know, in a very light vein, somebody earlier days said, you can call them IIS officer. I don't know, whoever it is, that there is a kind of set of people whom, in general, we find try to stop somebody's benefit, even though it doesn't benefit them. This should not be the kind of, so knowledge actually has to be used for some good purposes. I have just said pramana and prameya is necessary. Pramana is the instrument of knowledge, prameya is the object of knowledge, pratyaksha is one way, through senses we come to know, that is one kind of thing. Inference is the other one, through the word of mouth is called satya. There are a number of such. There is one interesting part, like theory of knowledge and theory of error. Both are there in the Shastras. There is something called Jnapti Vada, which is about jnana. There is also a Vada called Khyati Vada. Khyati Vada is for theory of error. When you mistake something as something else. Now there are 2 knowledges here. What is seen and as what it is seen. One of them is wrong. It is not that even when you have a doubt, there is a simple question, Vedantesika asks in Nyaya Parisiddhi, if samshaya has to be established, you should have nishchaya about samshaya. You are sure that you have a doubt. This is what he is asking. In the doubt, you should not have a doubt. Am I doubtful or not itself should not be there. So, a nishchaya in samshaya, there are different kinds of koti. Logic is of course tough, no doubt, it is rigorous, but it is the only solution to really sift out various issues. And there is something like, I genuinely mistook, people say. Mistake can be a mistake. What is the question of genuine mistake or artificial mistake? So, was it, again, sometimes people do not mislead, but if they have known wrongly and they have passed on what they know, that is what is one kind of category. The other one, knowingly someone misleads the other person. So, we need to classify, characterize, etc. etc. Anyway, I just wanted to say a few things about some of this can be later on. If it can be published or something, you can use. Education itself. There is one important aspect in the Shastras, in epistemology, it is said, knowledge is not measured by degrees. In that case, like generally there is a joke, temperature is measured in degrees. If knowledge is measured in degrees, that means your head hearts up. What does this mean? Somebody tries to logically put it like this. Why do you call a learned person having a degree? Degree can be used as an adjective is fine. So in some sense, knowledge has to help in terms of what are we dealing with, worldly things or beyond the world. So Paravidya and Aparavidya, Vidya is the word for knowledge, Vidya Sthana is the word used for subject. There are 14 subjects as per the Upanishad. That includes 4 Vedas, 6 Vedangas and 4 Upangas. These 14 subjects are called Aparavidya. There is something called Paravidya, which is meditation or Upasana, wherein there is no interaction with the other. It is just experience alone. So these two categories are to be today. In fact, all knowledge, including Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samveda, they are all Aparavidya only. But Aparavidya is the one which helps you, leads you towards the Paravidya, or the meditation, or the self-conscious situation. So this Vidya Sthana was the word used. Subject is not the word used. But interestingly, Vidya Sthanas should be Dharma Sthanas, is what both Vyasa and Yajnavalkya they have mentioned. Sthanani Vidyayaha Dharmasya cha. The moral angle is part of the knowledge itself, is what the tradition says. When you know something, you should truly represent what you know and seek true knowledge alone. Till that is not known, one should not have any hesitation in saying he does not know. Ignorance is not to be ashamed of. All are ignorant only in different subjects. This is what Mark Twain said. So it hardly matters. If you are ignorant in something, everyone is ignorant in something or other, so you are no different. So one need not be ashamed about ignorance. But knowledge has to be sought till ignorance is really removed. So the conceptual classes in these 14 different disciplines is what we have just tried to take out of that book. We are now trying to come to a situation. Analysis of a word or a sentence in the machine is being done at the morphological level, at the lexical level, the syntactic level. What is more important is the semantic part, or the concepts that are represented through words. So there, of course, if you can use science, will really benefit humanity. That is the idea. The epistemological angle, if it comes in, it will really help science to be more purposeful to the humanity. But I have just put a few things. In the Nyaya Sutra, there is interestingly 3 kinds of categories about the negative aspects of knowledge itself. This is in the 4th Adhyaya, where the Nyaya Sutra says there are 3 sets of emotions. One set is called the desire set, second is the hate set, third is the mistake set. Of course, there are different words used there: lust, jealousy, intricate liking to something, thirst, yearning for something. These are all different degrees of the desire set. The hate set, of course, has anger, rancor, malice, betrayal, intolerance, etc. Mistake set is, of course, wrong knowledge, doubt or indecision, ignorance, pride, inadvertence, various things. Now, these are not known to others. These are to be known by oneself. Do you like something or not? It has to be stated by the person. It cannot be known by another person what this person likes. So knowledge has a domain in which the individual is the master. He can only be trained. He can only be helped to transform. But when a teacher teaches a subject, he does not give his knowledge to the student. He makes the student's knowledge develop better. That's all what can be done. It is not transfer of the teacher's knowledge to the student. The student's knowledge facilitated to grow or develop. So one of the reasons we say the more you distribute, you don't lose anything, in fact it grows more. In that sense, each one has innate knowledge at different levels. This can be influenced, it can, but many times it is possible not through verbal teaching, even through practices it is possible to teach. Through niyamas it is possible. 2 different gurus teaching the same subject can have the students, even though they are best students or grab everything, their output can be different. Based on what I have heard long back, my teacher, grammar, Ramanujachar in Mysore, he used to tell me, his teacher, in fact his teacher was Srinivasacharya also, for Nivamsa, he was a student. He said, 2 students studying with the same guru had 2 different outputs in the Vidvat Sabhas. Whenever there is an argument or whenever there is to be very intricate logical questions asked, both of them have studied from the same guru. How come one of them is not able to manage like the other? Then he used to say, the person who performed better had better guru bhakti. Vaniki guru bhakti ekkuva. This is the word that the person used. How can bhakti change the knowledge? It's possible. Mahabharata also, it is a question of faith in something. Long back there was very Siddha Purusha. In our Asthana, there was one Swami who had Sakshatkara, good Vedic scholar. He was asked during British's time, there was a drought for many years continuously near the Madurai region. He was asked, you are a good Vedic scholar, can you perform some Pajjani Japa to see that rains come up timely kind of thing? Then he said, yes, he has to talk. Then he fixed the date and all that, he told people. He went performed this Japa. He said, morning I start, it goes on up to 12:30. By then it will start heavily raining. And it happened. This is also listed in the Gazette by the Britishers. One very important point that they have mentioned there was, this scholar, when he went to perform this yajna, carried an umbrella with him. This is what is mentioned there, and he was the only person who was not drenched by the end of the yajna. This makes a lot of difference. When you believe that what you are going to do is going to cause heavy rain, you better be cautious. If all others also heard this or had faith, it does not mean the faith is at the same level between these two people. Of course, Taitri Upanishad, Taitri Samhita, there is some question between two students of a Gurukula. Each one says, we have both learned the mantra. There are some mantras which are meant to create flame from even wet things. They go in front of a wet tree and say, we will now recite the mantra. Let us try to find fire in these two. One of them recites the mantra, only smoke comes out. The second person recites in front of another tree, it actually catches fire. Then the first student asked the second student, both of us have studied together. How come I could not produce actual flame? You have produced flame. You have become a rishi, he says. Yes, I believed this is going to happen. You probably thought, let us try out. Let us try out is different from it is going to work out. I am just saying, knowledge has got many shades, many shades of things happening. Many times we have found in the village doctors, for example, they could give so much of assurance to a patient. He gets cured even before the medicine is given. Even possible, it is even possible. So the question is about these sets of stages or the states of the knowledge itself. That is where the good features are to be all the time grown. So there are many Upanishadic statements. Just what, I don't know how much time we have, it's already 5:30. So, and just of course a few ontologies that we have drawn for various. This is done of course as my thesis here in the institute itself. That time I was trying to work on this kind of concept. A general purpose parser for Sanskrit is what I developed here. This is what I was mentioning from the Upanishad. If you have the different aspects of the sacrifice, life sacrifice, and there is also the feelings of the person, these will be these. So, or even Purusukta, if you take for example, there are a number of ontologies. I have written the mantra on the left, English on the right side. How do you categorize various things? Some of them, of course, I have mentioned earlier. Even for the grains, for the pashus, for various things, there is a different kind of. Anyway, so the source for guidance today is from tradition, is something I am just wanting to say. The Upanishad also has one class in the Taitri Upanishad. The Acharya tells the Shishya when he leaves the Gurukula, a few things to remember. You speak truth, you do dharma, etc. He keeps saying. In that there is one statement. If you get a doubt about the principles or about practices, then in the place, in your own vicinity where you stay, find people who are good in the Vedas, who are very knowledgeable in interpreting, understanding the content or the message of Vedas. They will be interested in dharma. Such a person you approach, you ask him what to do or simply follow what he does. These are two things that the Shruti says. If you have any doubt about precepts or practices, be like those who dwell there, who imbibe scriptures, who are well considered, right and authorized to lead, polite, bent upon upholding dharma. Such people you simply follow. This is the statement that I asked my father when he taught me this part. This student has completed Vedadhyayana, he is leaving Gurukula. The teacher tells him, you go find a person who has done Vedadhyayana, he will clear your doubt. I have also done that Vedadhyayana, what is so special about the other person who is going to tell me? If this question is asked, it is being told to a student who has finished Vedadhyayana now. If you get a doubt, you go and ask somebody who has done Vedadhyayana. I have also done Vedadhyayana, Baba. If I get a doubt, how will that person not get the doubt? You ask. That is where the adjectives that are used are important. He is not straight out of the Gurukula. He has applied it all his life in live situations. That is where they are well considered. They have seen principles in action. But there is a word called Dharmajna. Dharmajna is Dharmajna Samaya Pramanam. Adasam also has said Dharma to be known by theoretical or bookish learning, and Dharma to be applied in live situations and then learning as a world of difference. You find those who are wise enough, who are experienced, who have gone through many situations. That is the difference between you and him. They also have done this Jena, but they have also applied it somewhere. And of course, for Dharma itself, there is another Sutiya, Spatiya, Sadachara, Sasatya, Priyamat. It is necessary in today's world. Choose the right guide. The rest of it is done. You are taken care. You just have to go surrender into the right kind of person, and he does it for you. There is no issue. This is what basically we were just trying to. And of course, this is about the report. The Murthy wrote very nicely. The Epistemological Foundation enables the handling of diversity and complexity. It accepts, in addition to rigorous principles of logic and reasoning, experience at individual level, that is at the seer's level, Rishi's level, and at the aggregate level of the community as valid sources of knowledge. Such knowledge is to be realized either by individual effort or through community practice. This is the reason this country is even now blessed, in spite of all the problems. We still are living in a Punya Bhumi. Simply because of the collective penance, tapasya of so many generations of very great souls who have never had any selfish end in their mind. We are reaping the benefits of that. Fortunately, if we do not give back to society, we will become sinners or will become thieves. Use the word. You keep on taking and not giving back, then yo bhumte tena eva saha, so that applies to us. We have to only reach out. The first standard, when we studied, we had a story. A 95-year-old person is trying to plant a mango sapling. A person comes and asks him, you are not going to live to eat the fruits of this. It is going to take long years. Why are you planting this sapling now at this age? He simply says, all the fruit I ate, I never planted any of them. So someone had planted it for me to eat. It is up to me to at least see, I leave back something for the coming generation. That is what is ultimately tradition about. Tradition is very strong in philosophy of knowledge. Unfortunately, today knowledge does not have so much value, and so philosophy of knowledge is not considered. It is not considered in general to be lucrative or glamorous, or maybe in dollar terms it is not comparable. But any day, even Dasharatha, he was a Chakravarti, he would go and ask Vasishtha what should be done, not the other way around. He is a Chakravarti, so Vasishtha, whatever I want by money I can achieve anything. He never just asked him. So always it is the wisdom that is higher than materialistic achievement. And hence, so he wrote very nicely. The colonial administration stopped all these things they have written. Anyway, this is part of our report we have given to the government, just to tell people it is necessary today to look at the old system. I also want to, of course I have just mentioned the report by Professor K.R.S. Murthy, Chairman, Mission Group on Community Knowledge and Practices. I was a member of it also, and I headed one other subcommittee within that we did work on this particular work itself, this book itself. Now, one other thing I just want to refer to and stop, Professor R. Krishnan, most of us know, of course, he was in AFR, he is no more now, but he is a very good thinker. He once wrote a good book called Characterizing Literacy. A small book about 150 pages or so. He wrote about characterizing literacy. He said, as per Western standards, one who can read and write is a literate. That is their definition. And he wrote, read and write English in fine print. This is what he also had. People normally expect. This is the fine print part of it. One who can read and write English is only literate is what he said. This is wrong. He says, who cannot speak is actually a illiterate. If somebody cannot speak and convey his feelings, then only a person should be considered as illiterate. We hardly have any person. And he said, if a person cannot express his experiences precisely with proper accent, then he should be treated as illiterate. By this definition, all Westerners will become illiterate. Because of that fear, they try to define literacy the other way. In fact, he wrote it to UNESCO. Very nice way he put it. He also said, I'll give you 3 examples. By Western standards, they will all become illiterate, but you just consider the ability, competence, the brain's utility. One example he took is the rangoli that is drawn in front of all the houses by the women. When young girls who draw these different patterns, no less than very high level of combinatorics. But this is in practice. This does not pass your test of literacy. This is what he wrote. This is from Krishna's book. One example he gave is this rangoli. Second one he told about the Vedic Gurukulas where the Vikriti Pathas are taught, the Jata, Ghana, etc. None of them know anything about what they say. But they are so good in the Sandhi and in the patterns without any mistake in the letters or the swaras. A very good scholar will also be finding it difficult to explain something. By rote, without almost effortlessly, at the right age and in the right environment, people learn the Vikriti Pathas, the Ashta-Vikritis. They will not be literate as per your connotation, but that is one of the highest forms of good level of mathematical knowledge. Third one he talked about is the Agnihotra Vedis or the earlier day temple architecture, where no measuring instrument was used, still very, very precise calculations were done. Now, your definition you have to relook. This is what he actually mentioned. So, it's no less significant from tradition. What has stood the test of time? If only we can take some help from that. I have simply said the solution is traditional wisdom. People ask me, the trusted versus tested. This is what is the question people ask me. This is faith-based, belief-based, all the tradition part. So this is the trusted system. Whereas science is a tested system. So we have maybe something like IISc marks and that. So my solution is trusted is also well tested in scriptures as well as on the field. Whereas the tested may not be trustworthy. Then what do you do? This is the kind of situation we are in. And the last sentence, ancestors, even while being harsh, have our well-being as the sole reason for their exaltation. We had a boss when I was in ADA, Admiral Ray was there. He used to tell me, people want to please their father-in-law more than father. This is what he used to mention. It's something like we want to be started by the Westerners and not by our own parents. They generally do not appreciate in front. They should not. But Upanishad has a good reason for this. Again, Taittiriya Upanishad says, if a tree is appreciated, it is appreciated for flowers, fruit, or its shade, whatever. It is never appreciated for its roots. But all the praise goes to the root only. If the root comes overground, none of this will remain. This is what is the Upanishad. All the praise goes to the visible things, but it actually goes to the invisible that is holding it. The ancestors or the tradition is the force that is holding us in spite of all of us trying to run away from that or discredit it or don't believe in them. They still have our well-being alone. In fact, the word Vibhishana used with Ravana, Sulabha Purusha Rajan Satatam Priyavadinaha Apriyasyatu Pathyasya Vakta Shrota Cha Durlabhaha. It may be unpleasant, unpalatable, but it is in your interest. Such a truth, even if it is bitter, if it can be heard, followed, that is the solution to most of the ills. Most of them, of course, are created by us. So, what I just wanted to present.
Thank you, Dr. Ramanujachar, for a very enlightening lecture. But he has given lot of thought which are worth contemplate. Maybe one or two questions at the end may not really, but just a couple of questions that we can say regarding this one.
Your views about the today's rampant intellectual property rights.
This issue, I have a simple solution. All of us collectively should try for a patent to kill all patents. If this can be done, we are done. Actually, this is not going to go for long. Intellectual property rights already are getting into some difficulty. It is very difficult to define intellectual word itself. In fact, today there has been too narrow, too legalistic and too lopsided definition given. It should be brought to the notice of people that it is a futile effort. I remember about 3 years back at the National Knowledge Commission in Delhi, there was a meeting and I participated in a panel discussion. MIT of US came out with what they called as OCW, Open Courseware. Today a few courses are open, anyone anywhere in the globe can take their courses, etc. And they were almost in a self-congratulatory mode, patting their own back saying we have opened up all this knowledge. I just asked them a simple question. Who locked up the knowledge in the first place? You took credit for creating a patent regime. If you find it going futile, not to your liking, you want to disband it, still get credit for this. I opened up. He simply said at that time, Nahi jnanena sadasham pavitrameha vidyate in Bhagavad Gita. In India, at any time, knowledge was not treated as something as a commodity. Knowledge was not to be encashed. If knowledge is encashed, it stops growing, it stops benefiting. The earlier people realized it is better. So it is possible to show the ill effects of the IPR regime. But we do have this pressure from our ministry also. There is a big IPR cell in the ministry. They say anything that you do. In fact, to this date I have resisted. They have put all the Vedic Shastric knowledge on the net. They have put a lot of programs, etc. We never said they should be patented. Simply because it is stopped. We do not have a right on something which we have inherited. And our ancestors never thought it should be sealed or locked. So, sooner or later this mistake will be realized by those who are perpetuating. It is pure economical bullying, is what I would say. IPR just equivalent to economical bullying, and it won't go on for long. We should not support. In fact, if you have a open source system, let us say, as good as a proprietary system, I used the word at that time in that talk there, nothing can be freer than free. You make something free, one will never be, you can only see that to counter this kind of an attitude. Today people are going in for patent for Gayatri Mantra, I am told. A French person has tried to apply for a patent on Gayatri Mantra. Now these kind of things are foolish in the end. Now what does he expect to get? It's okay. Somebody said brinjal, haldi, all this. I am only saying it is foolish enough if they can realize in time. Otherwise, bombard the market with free options, better options. IPR is not good for development, number one. Number two, wrongly placed ownership should not be simply propped up by legalists. That's the view. And Shastras have never said lock up knowledge. In fact, I had asked, Ram Pitoda was the chairman of National Knowledge Commission. I asked him, can you define patent? Locking up knowledge, this is what he said. He was also the founder of CDAC, so we have had good interactions with him. I asked him this question, why do you lock up knowledge and what is the purpose served by that? And in fact, he told me, he has many patents. What he does is, find something, in some obscure corner, apply for something, get a patent, keep quiet, allow people to violate for a sufficient time, keep feeding a patent attorney, and after that person has made enough money, then you let loose the patent attorney on him, then you maximize your benefit. That is all. This kind of misuse of knowledge, how long can this go? So I really do not believe, and they are anyway short-lived. If you see 50 years is hardly any time in terms of the whole of the time span. Maybe another 50 years, there may not be any takers for IPR. Yes, sir.
One last question. I read that our scripture is that
Yes. No, I have denounced encashing knowledge, absolutely, without any conditions, ifs and buts. So whoever does it, it does not mean that only Westerners are the target. Indians also, if they misuse is wrong, that is the end of it. No more questions on that. If your question is that, okay, over the Hindu system there was deprival of knowledge to somebody, okay, it should not be taught to somebody kind of thing. It is not properly understood. In fact, I have had one very big session in IIT Kanpur long back on Manusmriti about the Varna system itself. If it is about the Varna system, then I can explain to you later outside. We will not spend the time here. That part, yes, I can answer, there is no issue. There is a lot of difference between what is said and what is done. And the system and implementation are two different things. Everything is right in law and no law is followed. These two things do not make the law bad. So, I think that is the short answer for
Thank you very much for a very, very invigorating talk by Dr. Ramanujam. See, knowledge is wisdom and he has proved it. And he is a true exponent of Mimamsa and he is a true Vachaspati. You have given so much food for thought. I think next time we are going to come back with more and more questions on this. I know Dr. Ramanujam for more than 2 decades. I don't think we can get another person who would make such a unique presentation than Dr. Ramanujam himself. I've heard many people talking in different planes, cognitive scientists, neuroscientists, but the one that Dr. Ramanujam has given is a unique presentation. And all of us would agree. Let's give him a big applause. We thank you for giving this. I would request our president to give the memento to the speaker. Professor V.V.S. Sharma, moderating the session. He was my teacher and guru. Professor M.R. Murthy is still here and he put up a note saying, Ajnana Timirandasya Gnananjana Charakaya Chakshuram Nilitamena Tasmei Shri Guruve Namaha. My pronouns to him. What I am today is only because of Professor V.V.S. Sharma. He was my mentor, he was my PhD guide. He trained me in artificial intelligence, and what we today know little about it is only because of Professor V.V.S. Sharma. In fact, it would be nice if we can even arrange. He's the only exponent in Indian logic, and you see how he talks in Indian logic. Marvelous. I think we should arrange in one of these days talk by Professor V.V.S. Sharma in this very platform. And we thank you, sir, for moderating the session. And I thank one and all for staying for such a long time, and today happens to be a very good day for us because we combined two things. As President and Vilkamana Pasathy decided that we'll have the Teachers' Day, turned out to be today like presentation ceremony for the senior gurus as well as the Science Form lecture series. So 2 in 1 we had, and we wanted all of you to be there till the end. Of course, 75% attendance is there. We are very grateful to you. And please keep coming to this Science Form lectures in more numbers, and get your friends and your relatives and students. We want more in number. We thank you one and all. Please join for tea in the adjacent. Thank you very much. Over. Oh, sorry. Tea is over, so next 7 minutes. Thank you very much. Yeah.